Some people go through pain and become bitter. Others go through the same pain and become unstoppable. The difference isn't what happened, it's what they did with it. Pain isn't the enemy. Unprocessed pain is. Because unprocessed pain rots in the dark, leaks into your decisions, and turns you into someone you don't even recognize. But when you understand how to work with it, how to shape it, burn it, forge it, you don't just survive, you rebuild. Most people try to escape pain. They distract themselves, numb it, bury it under performance or self-pity. But the Stoic doesn't run. He studies it. He turns inward. He strips away the noise and faces the wound directly, not to suffer more, but to take back control. And in that stillness, he begins to convert pain into discipline, clarity, and strength. Not overnight, but relentlessly. With reason as the weapon, not emotion. This video is about that transformation, not motivation, not comfort, but the mindset that takes pain and says, "You're fuel now." If you've been through something, loss, betrayal, failure, and you're tired of it owning you, the principles ahead will give you a framework. You won't just cope, you'll lead. You'll no longer be the one trying to get back to normal. You'll be the one people look at and wonder, how did he turn that pain into power? If this hits something real inside you, hit like, subscribe to Victory Stoic, and share this with someone still trapped in the cycle of reaction. Drop a comment below with the phrase, "Pain is my leverage," or tell us the moment pain almost broke you and what you did next. Your story might be the blueprint someone else needs. Now let's get into the mindset that turns wounds into weapons and weakness into war strategy. Number 1, pain is not the enemy. It's a signal. Pain feels like attack. It feels like betrayal, rejection, failure, and loss wrapped in fire. But to the Stoic, pain is not something to fight or fear. It's something to observe, because pain doesn't arrive to destroy you. It arrives to instruct you. It shows up when something in your system, your expectations, your worldview, or your habits has collided with reality. And rather than silence it, the Stoic listens, not emotionally, but diagnostically. Cleanthes, a lesser-known Stoic philosopher, once said, "Pain is the physician of the soul, not its executioner." In other words, what hurts isn't always what harms, but what you ignore because it hurts. That's what breaks you. Let's break this down in something familiar. Ben, 39, from Oregon, went through a divorce he didn't see coming. 12 years of marriage, no affair, no huge betrayal, just distance, silence, disconnection. One day, she said she was done, that she didn't feel anything anymore, and that shattered him. He couldn't sleep, couldn't work. He replayed every moment, looking for a clue. The pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical. His chest felt tight for months. Most men would run, distract, drink, escape. But Ben did something else. Every night, he wrote one page, not about her, but about his expectations, what he assumed would always stay, what he thought a good husband looked like, what conversations he avoided, what parts of himself he edited just to keep the peace. And what he realized, slowly, was this. The pain wasn't just grief over her absence. It was the awareness of how asleep he'd been in his own life. The marriage ending was painful, but the real signal? That he'd abandoned himself years before she left. The pain was not a punishment. It was a wake-up call. This is how the Stoic views pain, not as an enemy, but as data, a flashing light on the dashboard. You don't smash the dashboard when the light goes on. You check the engine. Another example. Monica, 33, was laid off from a company she loved. The email was cold. After 8 years of loyalty, she felt discarded. She cried for days. Her self-worth spiraled. But after sitting with it, actually sitting in silence with the pain, she began asking better questions. Why did her identity collapse just because a company let her go? Why was her value so attached to an external system she didn't control? The pain was telling her, you outsourced your worth. She used that realization to launch her own coaching platform. Today, she works fewer hours, makes more, and doesn't need a company to validate her value. These are not success stories. They're diagnostic stories. The success came later. The shift happened when pain was listened to, not avoided. Pain is not noise. Pain is signal. It's the system saying, something you thought was solid wasn't. And now you get to rebuild. Not around the pain, but because of what the pain exposed. The next time you feel rejected, misunderstood, or crushed by loss, pause before reacting. Ask, what is this pain pointing toward? What need did I pretend didn't exist? What story about myself just got proven false? And how can I rebuild with something more real? Practical tip. Start a pain journal. It's not for venting, it's for mapping. Every time you feel something intense, anger, heartbreak, humiliation, write down what happened. Then write the belief that got shattered. I thought she would never leave. I thought they respected me. I thought this job meant security. Then ask, was that belief ever fully real or just untested? What does this pain want me to see that I've refused to? This is how you stop suffering and start studying. Because the Stoic doesn't fight pain. He translates it. He breaks it into usable parts. He lets it burn what needs to go. Not him, but his illusions. And once the illusion burns, what's left is truth. And truth is never weak. You don't need to be afraid of what hurts. You need to fear what you never stop to understand, because that is what will repeat. Pain that is not decoded becomes a loop, but pain that is decoded becomes a tool. And the man who sharpens his tools builds differently the next time. Number 2, loss is not weakness. It's a purification. Loss strips you down, not just of what you had, but of what you clung to for identity. It rips away illusions that this relationship would last forever, that this job defined your worth, that this version of yourself was permanent. And in the moment, it feels like death. But what if it isn't? What if loss is not a failure, but a filter, removing everything that never really belonged to begin with? Musonius Rufus, one of the core Stoic teachers, said, "What we lose, we are often better without, if we lose it in the right way." That's not cynicism, it's wisdom. Because there is a kind of strength that only shows up after something is taken away. And that strength isn't shiny, it's raw, it's real. Take James, 45, from Austin. He was laid off from his tech leadership role after a company merger. He'd tied his identity to his job, VP title, 6-figure income, the house, the watch, the respect, and then gone. He spiraled. For weeks, he called old colleagues trying to get back in. Then one day, he stopped. He sat with the silence. He deleted the LinkedIn app. He wrote on paper, "Who am I without this title?" The answer didn't come fast, but it came. He realized he hadn't chosen any of it. He had just followed status. What felt like a breakdown was a breakthrough. He didn't get another big job. He started something smaller, a consulting firm, a podcast, a lifestyle that no longer required proving anything. What he lost wasn't power, it was a mask. Loss purified him. Or Tanya, 29, from Atlanta. She went through a public breakup after her partner cheated. Social media turned against her, as if she were the failure. She took her account offline. For the first time in years, she went dark. No selfies, no curated narratives, just her. At home, crying, sitting, breathing. She went through every photo and asked, "Did I really feel loved here? Or was I performing love?" What she found horrified her. She'd been cosplaying security for years. Her partner didn't take her seriously, but she needed the relationship to complete a version of herself. When it ended, it didn't destroy her. It destroyed the version of her that needed to be chosen to feel worthy. Today, she's quieter, but stronger. No more pretending, no more theater. Loss removed the costume. She found skin. Loss is painful, yes, but it is also a kind of fire. It burns only what is flammable, what is false, what can't hold under pressure. And what remains, that's what you were supposed to build from in the first place. Here's an analogy. Picture a sculpture. It begins as a block of stone. To become art, it must be chiseled. That chiseling looks like destruction to the untrained eye. But to the sculptor, every strike removes what doesn't belong. That's what loss does. It chips away everything that isn't you. Tip you can apply immediately. Next time you lose something, a person, a job, a status, a plan, sit down with it. Don't escape it. Ask, what did this thing represent that I thought I couldn't live without? Then ask, was that true? Or was it just comfortable? Write down what the loss is forcing you to confront. Fear of irrelevance, fear of being alone, fear of starting over. This isn't emotional, it's structural. Loss clears space. The question is, what are you going to build now that the clutter is gone? The Stoic doesn't mourn loss like a victim. He studies it like a craftsman. What used to be called weakness becomes fuel. What once was dependency becomes clarity. What felt like the end becomes a more honest beginning. You don't need to fear what leaves. You need to trust what's revealed when it's gone. Because what stays after the fire is who you actually are. And from that, everything strong can be rebuilt. Number 3, ask better questions. Get a stronger life. When pain hits, most people's first instinct is to ask, why me? It's a reflex of the wounded ego. It wants justice, explanation, reversal. But the Stoic doesn't waste time demanding comfort from the universe. He asks a different question, one that changes everything. What is this trying to teach me? That question rewires your emotional response. It shifts you from victim to student, from helpless to powerful. Because the question you ask in pain determines the future you build from it. Seneca once wrote, "A setback has often cleared the way for greater success. Many things have fallen only to rise to more exalted heights." He didn't say that to feel better. He said it to reframe pain as potential. Take Angela, 34, a nurse from St. Louis. She was passed up for a promotion she was sure she'd earned. She cried, felt betrayed, even considered quitting. But after a long walk and some hard journaling, she changed the question from, "Why didn't they choose me?" to, "What can I build that no one can withhold from me?" Within months, she launched a wellness consulting service for clinics, based on everything she wished her old department did better. 1 year later, she had more clients than she could handle. And her old boss, now one of them. Or Victor, 40, who was wrongly accused of stealing equipment from the warehouse he managed. Security footage cleared him weeks later, but the damage to his reputation lingered. At first, all he could think was, why would they do this to me? But after reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, he asked, "How can I live in a way that no one's false story can define me?" He switched companies, built new credibility, and started mentoring young workers on navigating trust and adversity. The betrayal no longer owned him. It built his clarity. Here's the Stoic shift. Bad things happen. To good people, to strong people, to all people. The question isn't whether pain visits, it's how you receive it. Do you demand answers or extract wisdom? Let's use an image. Imagine pain as a stone dropped in a lake. You can dive in, thrash, drown in frustration, or you can let the ripples pass and look down to see what was stirred from the bottom. Insight lives there, but only if you're calm enough to look. Tip you can apply immediately. Next time something hurts, pause. Write the initial question your mind asks. Usually it's some version of, "Why me?" Then cross it out. Replace it with, "What belief just got challenged? What skill do I now need? What strength can I grow from this?" Turn the question, "Why me?" into, "What can I learn from this?" The moment you do that, the pain doesn't vanish, but it starts working for you. The Stoic life isn't about detachment, it's about direction. Feel everything. But don't stay in the same old question. Ask a stronger one, and you'll get a stronger you. Number 4. Own what you can control. Most people feel powerless not because life is too chaotic, but because they try to control things that were never theirs to hold. The Stoic doesn't play that game. He draws a hard line between what's his and what's not. Not as avoidance, but as clarity. Because the moment you start living by the rule, what depends on me, I control. What doesn't, I release. You stop being a victim of the world and start being a force within it. Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher, built his entire philosophy around this one idea. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Your thoughts, yours. Your choices, yours. Your values, your response, your work ethic, all yours. But the outcome, the weather, what others think, not yours. Trying to own what doesn't belong to you is the fastest route to frustration. Take Jacob, 38, a firefighter from Phoenix. He lost a promotion because his superior played politics. At first, he raged at the system, at the unfairness. But eventually, he asked, "What did I actually control here?" The answer, his preparation, his service record, how he carried himself under pressure. So he doubled down on those. 18 months later, the same chief had to recommend him for an even higher post. Jacob didn't win by fighting. He won by focusing where his energy mattered. Or Melissa, 31, a single mom who co-parents with an ex who's consistently late, dismissive, and irresponsible. She used to argue every drop-off, every pickup. Now, she plans backup. She communicates clearly, without emotion. She tracks everything. She focuses on the one variable she can shape, her home. The result? Less chaos, more peace. Not because the world got easier, but because she stopped wasting energy on the parts she couldn't change. Imagine life like a boat. The wind shifts, the current pulls. You can't control the sea, but you can adjust your sails. You can reinforce your hull. You can steer with discipline, not drama. The person who masters that mindset doesn't need calm waters. They create progress in any condition. Tip to apply now. Write down one thing in your life that's causing you stress. Then draw 2 columns. On the left, list everything about it you control. On the right, everything you don't. Then circle the left column and let go of the right. That one habit, executed daily, rewires how your mind spends its energy. And energy is everything. The Stoic doesn't surrender. He reallocates. He stops negotiating with what's outside his reach and starts sharpening what's inside it. Because freedom isn't having control over everything. It's knowing exactly what's yours and refusing to give power to anything else. Number 5. Not all pain is real. Some of it is ego. You weren't actually hurt. You were insulted. You weren't betrayed. Your pride was bruised. Not every pain you feel is injury. Some of it is ego dressed up as trauma. One of the hardest Stoic lessons to swallow is this. Sometimes what you call suffering is just your false self being challenged. And that's not pain to heal. That's pain to recognize and release. Chrysippus, one of the founders of Stoicism, said, "Most of the harm we suffer is not from the world, but from the opinion we hold about the world." When your ego interprets every disagreement as disrespect, every boundary as rejection, every failure as humiliation, you become fragile. Not because you're weak, but because you're mistaking identity for reality. Take Eric, 35, a real estate agent in Miami. He lost a big client to a colleague. His first instinct was outrage. They stole my deal. But after cooling off, he admitted something deeper. He hadn't followed up. He'd assumed his name was enough. What hurt wasn't the client leaving. What hurt was his image of being untouchable collapsing. He didn't lose a client. He lost the illusion of superiority. And that loss was exactly what he needed to grow. Or Sheila, 42, who snapped at her sister during a dinner after being teased about her recent divorce. Later, she said, "She humiliated me." But in her journal that night, she wrote, "What actually hurt? That someone saw my vulnerability, and I hadn't made peace with it yet. It wasn't humiliation, it was exposure." And her ego called it an attack because it couldn't stand being witnessed in the raw. Here's a metaphor. Imagine your ego as a suit of armor, polished, heavy, and loud. Every time someone taps it, it clanks, echoes, protests. But what if you stopped wearing it? What if the sound you're reacting to is just the noise of your own self-protection getting dented? The less armor you wear, the less you get rattled. Tip to apply now. The next time you feel deeply offended or hurt by someone, don't respond. Ask yourself, is this about me or about my image of me? Then go further. What part of my identity is so fragile that this moment disrupted it? If you can name it, you can soften it. If you can soften it, it no longer controls you. The Stoic isn't emotionless. He's honest. He knows not every wound is real, and that many are just the ego protesting its loss of dominance. Let them go. You don't need to defend an illusion. You need to become so rooted in truth that no comment, insult, or misunderstanding can move you. Because real power isn't pride. It's inner silence in the face of noise. Number 6. What happens was meant to happen. The Stoic doesn't waste time with should have or could have. He looks at what is and works from there. The phrase that anchors this mindset is brutal in its simplicity. If it happened, it was supposed to happen, not because it was fair or deserved or pleasant, but because it did. And if it did, then your job is not to argue with reality. Your job is to respond to it with reason, not resistance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." That sounds almost fatalistic, but it's not about passivity. It's about alignment. When you resist the facts of your life, you suffer twice. First from the event, then from your refusal to accept it. Take Julian, 29, who lost a scholarship due to a technical error in his application. The system glitched. It wasn't his fault, but it was his problem. He could have spiraled into blame. Instead, he pivoted, took a loan, finished his degree anyway. Years later, he's teaching at the same university that denied him. He says, "If it had gone right, I would have never built this kind of grit." Or Nina, 37, who found out she was being replaced at her job while training her own replacement. It felt cruel, unjust. But once the tears dried, she told herself, "This is what's real, and now I get to choose what comes next." She took a break, started freelance consulting, and built her own client base. The betrayal wasn't a signal to break. It was a signal to break free. Think of reality like a river. You can try to swim against it, scream at it, demand it flows differently. Or you can turn and swim with it, navigate its bends, learn its rhythm, and use its power. The Stoic doesn't call hardship destiny because he's naive. He calls it destiny because he knows resistance delays growth. Tip to apply now. The next time something unwanted happens, before you protest, say this sentence aloud. "This is what happened. Now what will I do with it?" Don't add judgment. Don't add drama. Just respond. Then write down your response options, not your emotions, your actions. When you practice this, pain becomes a decision point, not a death sentence. The Stoic mindset doesn't require you to love what happens, but it does require you to work with it. Because only from that posture, eyes open, feet grounded, can you take back your power. Life is not about scripting every outcome. It's about meeting every outcome with strength. And the strongest person in the room is not the one with no scars. It's the one who stopped blaming the storm and started learning how to sail. Number 7. You don't owe the world an explanation. Only right action. There will be moments when you're broken, misunderstood, unfairly judged, and the temptation will be to explain, justify, prove your side. But the Stoic doesn't argue with perception. He aligns with action. The goal isn't to make others understand your pain. It's to make your response so sharp, so clean, so grounded in virtue, that no explanation is needed. Seneca wrote, "Waste no time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's not just philosophy, it's strategy. When the world misunderstands you, don't correct them with words, correct them with outcome. Ethan, 41, was blamed for a failed group project at his architecture firm, despite having raised concerns weeks earlier. His first instinct was to send a long email explaining everything. He didn't. He stayed quiet, focused on a new client, delivered an exceptional result. 3 months later, leadership publicly credited him for stabilizing the team. No speech, just impact. Or Rosa, 32, who was ghosted by someone she thought she'd marry. She wrote letters she never sent. She wanted closure. But then she realized, why fight for words when I can build a life that speaks louder? She focused on her career, her health, her friendships. A year later, she walked past that person in a coffee shop. She smiled, didn't stop, didn't need to. She'd already said everything, with how she lived. Think of your life like a canvas. Every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't want to understand, you hand them your brush. You give them power over your picture. The Stoic never does that. He paints in silence, and the image speaks for itself. Tip to apply now. When something painful happens, write down what you want to say to others. Then ask, what result could make this statement irrelevant? That's your new direction. Your energy doesn't belong in defense. It belongs in design. Design a day, a habit, a discipline, a legacy that makes your point for you. The strongest people don't need to explain why they're strong. They just are. And that presence, over time, makes the loudest noise in the room, without saying a word. Number 8. Master pain, and you fear nothing. Fear is the shadow of pain you haven't faced. Every unprocessed wound, every memory you avoid, every emotion you suppress, those become the roots of your fear. But once you've sat with pain, dissected it, and learned from it, it loses its grip. You stop flinching. You stop negotiating with the past. You stand. And that posture changes how the world sees you, because people can feel when nothing owns you anymore. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about things." Pain is not the monster. Your refusal to meet it is. The Stoic doesn't pray for a painless life. He trains to become the kind of person who can walk through fire and not beg for escape. Michael, 36, grew up with an abusive father. For years, he thought strength meant pretending none of it mattered. He became the tough guy, always joking, always drinking, never opening up. Until one day, his daughter, age 6, asked, "Daddy, why don't you ever cry?" That cracked him open. He didn't go to therapy to fix himself. He went to war with the lie that pain made him weak. Years later, he mentors young men, especially fathers, teaching them that pain faced is pain disarmed. Lauren, 28, lost her younger brother in a car accident. Everyone told her to take her time grieving, but what she really wanted was control. So she went back to work, overachieved, smiled through it, until she couldn't. One morning, she locked herself in the supply closet and broke down. That was the start of a new path, not away from grief, but with it. She started a foundation in her brother's name. She speaks at schools about loss and resilience. Now, when people ask how she stays so calm under pressure, she says, "Because the worst already happened, and I survived it." Here's the truth. When you've looked pain in the eye and kept walking, you gain a presence that's unshakable. You're not rude. You're just no longer ruled. People stop testing your limits because they sense you've already been tested and passed. That's power. Not volume, not image, but stillness earned in fire. Think of it like a forge. Metal doesn't become a sword without heat. You don't become someone unbreakable without being bent. But unlike metal, you choose how you come out of the heat, hardened or clear. The Stoic chooses clarity. He lets pain refine, not define, him. Tip to apply now. Write down one pain you've avoided, a memory, a failure, a regret. Then write how you've reacted to it: denial, distraction, control. Finally ask, what would it look like to make peace with this instead of managing it? That shift, from resistance to relationship with pain, is the beginning of fearlessness. When pain becomes your teacher, fear becomes your student. And when you live without fear, people notice. They don't pity you. They respect you, because you're no longer afraid to bleed, and that makes you impossible to shake. Closing. Turn pain into your power. If you made it this far, you already know the truth. Pain is not the villain. It's the forge. It's the invitation. And it's the filter that separates those who crumble from those who rise. What you do with it determines whether it controls you or fuels you. You've seen examples, heard principles, and maybe even recognized yourself in some of the stories. The next step isn't about remembering them. It's about becoming them. Most people let pain define them. Stoics let it refine them. That's the difference. It's not about suppressing emotion or pretending nothing hurts. It's about training your mind to respond with intention, not instinct. because life won't stop throwing punches. But once you've trained with pain, you stop flinching, you stop asking for fairness, and you start building forward, quietly, powerfully, unshakably. So here's your challenge. Go back through your own story. Identify one wound that's still shaping your identity. Then ask, not how to erase it, but how to work with it. Let it teach. Let it clarify. Let it cut away what's false, so what remains is steel. If this video gave you something real, hit like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This channel is for people who are done being victims of their emotions and ready to build unshakable self-mastery. Drop a comment below with the phrase, "Pain is my power," or tell your own moment when something tried to break you and instead built you. That story may be the exact fire someone else needs to walk through their own. Thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and remember, the people who fear nothing aren't fearless by birth. They are forged in pain, and they chose to walk through it with their eyes open. We'll see you in the next one.